Our next guest says if you want to lower inflation, stand up to China and secure the borders. Donald Trump should be the next president. Joining us now, former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. I was kind of laughing at that we were going to... Got the Republican here, we got to talk about inflation. Now with you, none of the other stuff. We're just...
Hey, we should be celebrating today. Everybody has a right to go vote. People died for this right. Mm-hmm. You got a close election. Your voice matters. So no matter which side you're on, you should be excited about today.
We had someone from Evercore on talking about the cross currents. And one is, she actually said that there was so much early voting that it might be hard in Pennsylvania, in North Carolina, for Democrats to make up the difference, but then said that the independents were breaking towards Kamala Harris and that women, that the margin was... So I couldn't figure out which... What really has gone on?
You can give data any way you want, but if you want to compare... Okay, if you compare 4 years ago, the Democrats were up in Pennsylvania by over 1 million votes right now. Mm-hmm. Today, only 400,000. On Election Day, Republicans beat Democrats on turnout. So where you look right there in Pennsylvania, it's an advantage for Republicans. There is a gender gap. But if you go and look at the specific numbers of today and where Biden was, she's actually 1.2% lower in the gender gap than Joe Biden was.
That's the first person I've heard say that.
Yeah. And so...
And I'm sorry, is that just in Pennsylvania? Or
no, you could go... I do overall, and you go state by state. Mm-hmm. And then if you look at intensity, okay? Every election, the pollsters got it wrong, and you figured it out later. If you look at the environment, right? Timing matters everything. The generic ballot was +6 for Democrats. It's 0.4 for Republicans. So what it tells you is the environment better for Republicans. Mm-hmm. You've got a Senate that it doesn't matter environment because it's pure map. You've got a presidential race that no one person put it away. But I would give an advantage to President Trump because even Kamala's team would tell you early on she had to be winning by 3% to win the Electoral College. And now when it's tied or she's behind, they say, oh, that doesn't matter.
Can I ask you almost like a game theory question?
Sure.
Because you see both sides say certain things. Both sides like to say, like you're saying right now, and I'm not contesting it, that it looks like Trump is going to win.
I said he has the advantage.
Right, and then Harris might say that or may not. Sometimes people say that there's an advantage to saying you're the winner because that actually gets people to the polls. And other people say, well, if it looks like your candidate is losing, or you say, it's on a knife's edge, that actually encourages people to go out and vote for them to the polls. And then there's a third piece, which is new to this whole situation, which is there is a theory, which you may think is not right, but I'll suggest it, which is that there are Democrats who fear that Republicans are trying to tell the public that Trump is winning, so that if he is not winning for whatever reason, that they can then say that he did win even if he didn't.
Okay, so you gave every single position.
ABC, multiple
Somebody
choice.
could do that. Somebody in the country could do that for any reason.
Yeah, so they
but
could do it for
I don't
anything.
think it matters either way. If one side says they're winning, it motivates the other side. You got to get out. Mm-hmm. The part I've always hated in an election coming from California is people declaring it while the polls were still open.
Right.
Because that determines a lower race. That determines Congress and others.
And by the way, you don't have any skin in the game this time around. You're not trying to win the House or doing.
No, I want to keep the House. I care about my country.
But you're not the one who is actually there counting.
No, because we would be winning bigger if I was. No. This is a good climate for Republicans in the House, and the House is a toss-up. There's about 15 races could go either way. And really, the presidential election will probably tilt those. It usually happens. Even though the polling is close, somebody can win by a bigger margin. Now, I know both sides will tell you all different things, but all sides will tell you it's Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. If Kamala Harris wins Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan,
Pennsylvania's
you
game
can't
over
win.
for either side.
Exactly. And if you're in the House and you want to know how the House is going to go, because you're looking at the East Coast, look at the race in Maine on Golden. Watch Pennsylvania 7 and 8. Wild and a Cartwright seat. Watch North Carolina 1. We're going to pick up 3 in North Carolina, but if we pick up that, and then you can look at 2 races in Virginia. If Republicans sweep those, it's going to be a big night for them.
What
if they
are the
split,
2 races in Virginia?
Well, in Virginia you got Spanberger's old race. Okay. Derek is running fabulous, and Jen Kiggins is up for re-election down in Virginia Beach. Okay. Those would give you early indicators of where things are going. But because you have so much early vote, before you would find some states count that absentee votes first, and that's why you see things shift. But because you have so many people voting early and on election day, it should give you what the numbers are, should stay consistent this time instead of flipping in the middle of the night.
Any things we're not considering in terms of absolute surprises? Georgia, could Georgia go blue again?
Georgia could. There's like 2 suburbs outside of Georgia, outside of Atlanta, I like to watch. Look, Atlanta and the metropolitan makes up 60% of the vote. The suburban areas, when they lost the Senate races, stayed home. They were dejected. It was after the presidential race. And then what we found is they're turning out larger. The Republicans came in bigger. So I think Georgia's a much better place. There's a large black vote inside there that's been motivated into, but you've got a gender gap in there.
Right.
The thing I would say to Kamala's team, tell me how you win if Trump gets 41% of the Hispanic vote and over 16% of the black vote. Then the gender gap is not.
In urban, I've read anyway, I don't know if it's true, that in some urban areas that voting isn't as strong as it had been, early voting.
But you still have the election today.
How about Virginia? Could Virginia go red?
Could it? Yes. Is it? The probability is probably not. Had Youngkin been the nominee, there would be a good chance.
Wisconsin is definitely going down in the Harris side.
No, I would not write off Wisconsin. Look, Wisconsin.
Because then you don't need to win Pennsylvania.
If you look 4 years ago, on this day, Biden was leading Wisconsin by 6.3. And he only won it by 20,000 votes. So they underestimated Trump by 4.2%.
Right. We're going to get ahead of ourselves with this question because it's almost like a day 2 story.
Yeah.
One of the things that was interesting about Barry Diller yesterday, he said, what I'm really excited about is the 2028 election. And one of the things I'm curious about is just somebody who's watched politics for a long time. If Kamala Harris wins today, does it fundamentally change the thought process around what happens in the Republican Party? And do you believe if Trump wins today, it fundamentally reshapes the way the Democratic Party thinks about itself?
Yeah, whoever loses will correct whatever problem they had for losing. And they will be stronger. Also,
but you would argue, though, that the Republicans didn't do that in the past 4 years, right? Because
why didn't we do that? Well, the argument is Trump is back. Why? Because his policies are back. It is a great comparison to the border. Which style do you want? It's a great comparison to the economy. So Trump was right in that sense. That's why he's leading. What you will have is a generational change. The Biden and the Trump is gone. Right. So who is the new leader of both parties? Whoever wins the White House 2 years from now will probably lose. If that party wins the House, will probably lose. So you have a much different place historically. If you lose, what I would do, I would rebuild and come in stronger. And 4 years from now, you could be sitting, having the majority in the Congress and winning the White House.
Do you think that this country can live with each other after this?
Yes.
You've seen the articles written, though. You've got, if you've got one person that's been characterized as a threat to democracy and a fascist and a Nazi and Hitler, and there are really a lot of people who believe that fully and think that this person should be nowhere near the Oval Office. So if he wins, you've got that. On the other hand, you've got people saying that not a single primary vote, has no, business actually being commander-in-chief geopolitically or anything. You've got two sides that are never going to come together. It's going to be very, very ugly.
Okay, I believe something fundamentally different. I believe the country is so hungry for a strong leader that unites Republicans and Democrats.
You think that could be Donald Trump?
I do, but he's defined so much already. Democrats won't work with him, and this is something I've learned and watched Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not so rigid that he is so philosophically bent in one conservative manner that he won't take a different position.
Right.
He will, but the Democrats dislike him so much. There's a lot of positions that I was afraid in a leader position that, oh my God, he's going to go do a deal with him, but they wouldn't do the deal.
His first 2 years were spent, as a Russian agent for Vladimir Putin.
This is why
something will happen.
Okay, my hope tonight, the person who wins the Electoral College wins the popular vote.
That would be great.
And we move on. And the election
that
is
there's a
over, and
defining-
people are going to govern.
Look, if there's a
But I
defining-
do believe the country is hungry for someone who would take the extremes on both sides and say, you're too extreme, and I'm going to govern.
I would agree.
And that will unite. That will unite the country. And you need an election about ideas. I mean, this is a point I made last time I was here. This is the most money ever spent. Kamala has spent more than $1 billion, but I'm not being facetious. I can't tell you the 3 things she would do. And is that a blame on her? But that's a blame on the campaign team.
Well, it's been their plan. Their game plan is just to
but-
say, I'm not Joe Biden, I am not Donald Trump.
But she doesn't answer that way. She said she'd do nothing different. That's a hard way to govern. When you have an election where you're enticing your base to go out to vote against somebody instead of vote for something, you might win, but you can't govern very well. So you want an election about ideas. You really
The
do.
Supreme Court hadn't stepped in, would Al Gore have won?
No. you would have gone on longer. And the thing, I
getting narrower and narrower.
Okay, I listened to your debate earlier, and the part I think, having been on the inside, watching things happen, what happens one year extracts to the next year, and it gets larger and
2004,
larger.
2008,
And so you would say, oh, Democrats didn't do the things the Republicans did. Well, the thing I will tell you is when they first started challenging for January 6th, but it didn't turn out the same way, the next year, the next party that got mad, they went a step further than the party did before, and it escalated.
I'm not disagreeing that it escalated.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that there's a distinction. And by the way, I think it's fair to say, just for the audience that doesn't know, what your position was in the aftermath of January 6th.
I'm appalled to January 6th. I don't support anything that happened.
You were appalled at former President Trump at that time, and then
When
you decided
learn-
that you weren't appalled.
But there's also a point here, too. I was sitting as the Republican leader in the House. At no time did the Sergeant of Arms ever talk to me. Not on January 6th, not before, not after. And when I became Speaker, you know the first thing I did? I said, I'm going to treat Hakeem Jeffries the way I wish I was treated. So any time the Sergeant of Arms wanted to come give me a briefing, I said, not alone. I called Hakeem, come into my office, you brief us both. Why would you make the security of the Capitol political? And this is where we have extrapolated too far. And you need to take that part down. You need to show respect on both sides. There are a large number of members on the other side. They have a right to know if there's a security problem or not. They have a right to know that if somebody was offered National Guard to be there to have that decision shouldn't be political. But everything was political, and that was wrong.
Very good.
Amen.
Thank you, former Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
Hey, you should be excited. It's Election Day. Go vote.
There you go.
Okay. Oh, we will.